Moving forward, top trend predictions for the year ahead. With 2022 just around the corner, Shira Lazar leads a discussion about what to expect as we move forward. Shira is the co-founder, host, and executive producer of the Emmy-nominated live interactive daily show and 24/7 news hub, What's Trending. So here to talk about all the trends, Shira.
It is an honor to be here with all of you. I'm coming to you from Los Angeles. I love Founder Made and everything that they are working on. And it's so cool to be continuing to do this virtually with all of you. And so inspired by all the stories of all you founders and people just following your visions and creating amazing things. It's so admirable. So congratulations, I acknowledge you. And I am so excited to introduce the great panel we have today to talk about, as Julia mentioned, top trend predictions for the year and ahead in the beauty and wellness space. And by the way, I also started a wellness platform during the pandemic called peaceinside.live. Check it out. So this all resonates for me. But I'll start with Andrea Bleeden from Lime Crime, the CEO. Welcome.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And then we're going to get into some other intros or how else you want to get into what you do and the companies. Emily DiDonato. Hey, Emily.
Hi,
co-founder of Covey. Rohan Kapoor, strategic partner manager for venture capital and platform partners at Gorgeous.
Hello.
And Sagar Mehta, chief growth officer at Vendo Commerce.
Everyone.
Hey, so thank you all for joining us. I guess let's get right into it in terms of each of your companies and how the past year in the pandemic has really changed how you run those companies and reach consumers and your clients. So who wants to begin? Let's start with Andrea.
For those of you who don't know Lime Crime is an incredibly unique color brand because we play in both hair color and makeup. So it's a pretty untraditional combination. But I would say some of the trends that we've seen in the past year and a half, well, maybe even longer since we've been in this COVID world, have been the unique ways that people are really starting to play with color and really having fun with it, you know, going into a land where you're working from home and super casual and relaxed and, you know, you don't necessarily have like the same dress code restrictions that you had in your past life. We found so many people are dyeing their hair at home and having tons of fun with hair color. And we're seeing this trend continue to go on as people have replaced these typical like salon services and professional services with doing things at home and having fun. So that's been a huge trend that we've seen over the past year and a half. And then another big thing that we have seen switch so many times, and I think based on the category that you're in and the brand that, like how mature your brand is, this has probably changed for everyone in different ways, but we've seen a huge shift at the beginning of the pandemic to online shopping, and then a huge shift as the world started opening back up to in-store shopping. And we're still in the process of understanding like what that's going to be in the next couple of months. I think that what I've heard from people and what I've read, it's been all different things. Me personally, I believe that in holiday, that's really going to change and that people are going to go back from stores back into the e-com world. But there's been so many different shifts in COVID. It's been really interesting to see the business go each way.
And I know some of you don't just have brands, but work with clients. Rohan, do you want to jump in? And Emily, I want to also obviously dive into you, but who wants to go next? I was going to go to the client side also.
Please.
Rohan?
Yeah, definitely. I can go ahead. Yeah, so Rohan, I manage our VC and platform relationships at Gorgeous. Been at the company for about a year and 4 months at this point. And Like you said, we work with a number of different clients all across the DTC e-commerce spectrum. About 7,000 at this point, and a big chunk of those are in the beauty and wellness category. And just to the points that Andrea was making earlier, like over the last year and a half, with the coronavirus pandemic, there has been such a shift to this e-commerce world, and a lot of buyers that would typically go into stores to purchase products and otherwise have since moved to the online experience to interact with brands through a variety of different channels, right? There's live chat, there's email, there's SMS, there's social media. There's so many different ways now that we hadn't seen in the past for consumers to get in touch with brands. And so we're seeing a lot of those consumers utilize those channels, and likewise on the brand side, to interact with their clients and make sure that they're getting in front of prospective customers, before they ever hit their website. And e-commerce has just kind of boomed over the last year and a half. And to Andrea's point, with delays and everything going on in the e-commerce world too, there is that small shift back to the retail environment. But I do think, when all is said and done and it nets out at the end of the day, there will be an increased number of shoppers in the e-commerce world that we hadn't seen before. And we're here to support everyone that we can.
Beautiful. Yeah. Oh yeah, continue. Yes.
I could jump in too. So Sagar here from Vendo, Chief Growth Officer at the firm. And I couldn't agree more with Andrea's point, actually. Living at home in the pandemic for the last, year and a half, 2 years, however long it's been at this point. I actually served as a test subject for my fiance, who's a makeup artist and a skincare artist here in Los Angeles. So funny enough, I've seen these trends kind of land at my doorstep for the last year and a half. And the one thing that I think we're trying to debunk here at Vendo is that I think we're past the chapter of owning your customer. I think customers don't want to be owned, to be honest. I think they want to really trust brands and they want to be loyal to brands. And at Vendo, we manage over 150 clients across e-commerce, specifically on Amazon, to really help them launch on Amazon properly in an organic, authentic way, or scale their business to international markets and help them, break through revenue ceilings because they don't know what other levers to pull besides, being present on Amazon. And outside of the things that you can, obviously do, such as paid posts, mobile posts, actually building a really engaging brand store, and creating the best A+ content that really educates authentically the customer. It's really easy to also mess that up, right? If you just become a transactional brand on a marketplace. And I think that's the one thing that I would see as a trend that's debunked is like, hey, you can't really just own your customer on D2C anymore. You have to be where they are, and you have to build loyalty, because that loyalty is LTV in our minds. And once you build loyalty, they'll pick you up from a Sephora or an Amazon or your D2C site. It doesn't really matter as long as it's convenient to them, because you may be looking at a TikTok, right, that leads you to an Amazon listing. So as long as I think you can build loyalty and make sure your brand is positioned authentically on marketplaces, that's going to be the winning strategy. And that's kind of what we do here at Vendo as background too. So that's what I would say is one of the most important trends I've seen from the shift of the pandemic and this past chapter of D2C brands really just wanting to own their audience and information. I think it's less about that and more about transparency and authenticity.
Amazing. And just finally, Emily, as we go back into the consumer facing brand, and we already have a question, which I love, and we'll be getting to those. So definitely include them in the chat and raise your hand. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, kind of going off what everyone else is kind of saying here. Obviously, it's been the year of online shopping. So that's been really exciting and something wonderful for a direct to consumer brand. We just launched in March. So obviously that's been really great for us, and for skincare in particular, it's fun and exciting. Also, I would say the other thing is obviously we've all been spending so much time at home, also exciting for beauty and skincare, hair care. I think everyone's trying to find routines and rituals and things that make them feel good living in this new world that we're in. So I feel like this kind of idea of honing in on routines and rituals that you can kind of keep up with and enjoy while we're going through this time has been something we've definitely seen.
Yeah, and I want to get into the content marketing aspect of it. TikTok was mentioned, social media, and I think you each are using that in a different way. And so what trends are you seeing in that? And what is working for each of you?
I mean, I think generally for myself, because I'm a content creator and then I also am a co-founder, it's interesting because I've been a model for over 12 years and I came from this world of like very highly produced content and huge commercials with lots and lots of people in production. And, you know, TikTok and Reels in this space that we're in now is a beautiful thing because I find for myself and even for Covey that low quality is a-okay. Sometimes just a floating head speaking directly to the camera and really sharing what your product is about or what you're saying is really, really powerful and kind of all that you need in order to get a message across. So I feel like for TikTok, I mean, recently something went viral for Peter Thomas Roth, which like a woman used an under eye cream that had this magical transformation. You could tell she was just like outside on her balcony and just showing this amazing transformation. And it went totally viral, and Peter Thomas Roth sold out of that product like times a million. But I think the point is that like anyone, especially with TikTok, can have such a huge impact on a product and your marketing. So your customers really, really matter, and that user generated content really, really matters. And also content generally, it doesn't need to be super fancy or super produced. It's kind of a million answers at one.
Yeah, we've seen the exact same thing. So we've also just totally moved off of like the old way of launching a product where you have like a expensive photo shoot in the studio, and you know, we've moved to far more influencer created content, customer created content. And then even when we do use like a in studio shoot because we need to get something a little bit different to show the color a little bit more or whatever it is, it's super like low touch, totally different than the old world pre-pandemic, which is really great, I think, also because it gives brands a lot of opportunity to funnel dollars into actually reaching customers versus just, you know, producing content. And then you, for smaller brands, run out of the funds to reach your customers. And I would say that also another thing is how you see that content out has changed so much. So like in Amazon for us, we found that like people don't view, I think, even for me, I'm a huge Amazon shopper, but I haven't always viewed Amazon as like the sexiest content place to shop. And like, you know, now we're seeing our ads perform where we have influencer content in our ads perform way better than just, you know, a generic brand ad. And so we're leveraging a lot of our efforts into, you know, taking our D2C content and putting that on Amazon.
Well, let's,
That's
I guess,
literally
get in.
that's exactly
Yeah.
the strategy that, you know, I would have doubled down on. So spot on. Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to get into that and get your take as well on that, Sagar.
Yeah, I think it's just so clear that, again, it goes back to, I think, even what Emily was saying, just you can have a floating head just talking to someone, as long as you're authentic, right? That's what people want to see. And for so long, there was a stigma for Amazon to just be transactional. And you see all these aggregators buying up sellers. And it's never been an easier time to be a seller, but a harder time to be a brand because there's more noise. And I think authenticity, as cliche as it is, will cut through the noise on a platform like Amazon, because it's still a media platform, right? It really is. I mean, you're scrolling, you're looking, you're swiping through pics, your attention span is still short. You might hear it from a friend, you might see it on a commercial and just use it as a Google for yourself. So the more you can show up with using different, you know, tactics such as Amazon posts or mobile posts where you actually end up on competitors' pages with these short videos. There's so many different strategies you can use to get that D2C content that you've preserved and you've thought, hey, can only be for owning my audience. You can move that over to other marketplace channels. And I think that will drive a huge uptick in revenue, because, to be honest, it is easier to convert on Amazon, right? And I think a lot of brands are learning that.
And I wanted to get into categories that you're investing into more with the changes and what you're seeing from the consumer need with people being more at home or the hybrid lifestyle. Has that changed the categories that you're looking into?
I mean, if you want, I can jump in, but
yes, sir, you could start.
No worries. From us, I mean, COVID has totally shifted our mix of business. So I would say that Lime Crime was always makeup first, hair color second. And now we're equally weighted. And I mean, our hair color business has tripled. So we've definitely seen that the shift to at home has totally changed. And then I think when you look at what's working in the beauty industry right now, things like hair care are bigger than ever before, because people are really investing in self-care and also, once again, moving those professional services at home. But also the simplification, I think Emily brought this up, but the simplification of routines. So where you might have used 12 different makeup products to get ready, you're really using far less today. And I think consumers are looking for, products that can do a lot of things in one product versus buying that 12-step routine. And it's the same with skincare. They're looking for a much more simple skincare routine. It's really changed the amount of products that people want.
Yeah, I would say that, like, for us at least, we've really honed in on social listening and kind of really listening to our followers. That's something that we built our entire brand on. But like Andrea was saying, like, simplification is a really big thing. I think there's so much content now too. I think there was just so much content put into the universe during the pandemic, especially around beauty and skincare while we were all at home. And now we're seeing this kind of like pullback to things being a little bit more simplified. So for us, what we've really focused on is, like, what does our audience want? What are they asking for? I'm constantly polling my audiences, and then also on Covey's audiences. And we're finding that, like, definitely simpler is something that people are looking for. And it's great also because so many people are at home and they're active and they're on their computers and they're willing to chat and hop on a Zoom and do these kind of like community element type activities, which is really, really great.
I mean, I
Oh,
can
go
also
ahead.
add from my
Yeah.
perspective. I mean, like with the pandemic, obviously, like people are on devices a whole lot of the time, right? And like I was talking about earlier, there are more channels than we've ever seen. So, if brands through the course of this pandemic are seeing that, certain products are selling better than others, and products that they used to have sell really well aren't really doing as well during the pandemic for whatever reason. I mean, that's a very common point that a lot of brands are seeing. It's how are you communicating that to your shoppers and to prospective new shoppers, right? How are you letting them know that you have this product in your database that is potentially going to do very well during the COVID pandemic? Like, are you getting in front of them via SMS? Are you getting in front of them via social media? One of the things that we love to talk about is, like, when it comes to interacting with your customers and letting them know what you might have for them, it's don't be so reactive and wait for them to come to you. It's like, be very active in the situation, take steps to get in front of prospective customers before they ever hit your website. And doing things like that is going to lead to, potential brand loyalty, right? Where they weren't a shopper before, but then they turn into potentially a repeat shopper coming back to you to purchase more and spend more every time that they come back too. So there are different tactics you can use in that omni-channel approach to get in front of your customers. And we're seeing a lot of brands utilize that, given the pandemic and how it's changed things.
I love that point, Roland. I think to get in front of them before they even know, like that educational sort of twist to it, where I think on Amazon, the way we think about doing that is you have an opportunity for net new customers, right? It's still a customer acquisition channel. And the way to take advantage of that is really hone in on those new keywords, right? Is it vegan, right? Is it sustainable? Is it something complete? Is it cream blush? I don't know. And maybe I don't know what those new trends are specifically, but whatever it is, can you actually expand your digital shelf space, quote unquote, and like end up on other shelves, right? Where your normal customer wouldn't be. Because if you think about Amazon, it's just a ton of aisles, right? That people are actually just Googling and just walking into those aisles. Start showing up on other aisles. Start showing up on the ones where you think the trends are headed towards, and start incorporating that, I think, to Rohan's point, into proactive outreach for your customers and getting a new subset of customers that could be your next loyal cohort.
Yeah, I love that. And it kind of goes into one of the points that we had talked about even in our pre-call about meshing content and data authentically, and how you each balance that and really nail it down. Andrea?
I don't think there's a silver bullet just yet. I think that one of the things that we saw very quickly in the pandemic, and if you worked on a D2C brand, you were quickly shifting your strategy and changing constantly based on, just the fluctuating environment. But I think one of the things that we've learned at Lime Crime over the past couple of months is that there's, what works for one thing doesn't work for everything. So for example, what's working on Instagram isn't necessarily working on TikTok, isn't necessarily working on YouTube. Like, we've seen all different platforms react to all different things. So I think it's also really understanding that you're going to have to be much more nimble in your content strategy and try different things on different platforms and see what works. It's not like one thing. And I think that's really different than the old way of marketing, where, you would create this like robust suite of assets that went everywhere and they all looked really cohesive and they all looked the same. Now that's changing a lot.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with what Andrea said. I feel like obviously the pandemic, so much was changing and going on, and like listening to your audience, it was such an important time as a brand, but also as a content creator. Like in the middle of last year, if you were out like showing your most recent shopping spree, which like would have done well like 4 years ago, like people don't want to see it and they don't want to hear it. But I do think being really nimble, being really quick, that's one thing for us as a brand. Like for myself, being a content creator, I mean, the trends move so quickly. I mean, TikTok, there's literally, if you miss 2 days on TikTok, there's like 20 new trends that you need to like get on top of. That can be really stressful. But it's like my co-founder is actually my neighbor, and I'll call her and I'll be like, I need you to come over right now. There's a trend that's like so perfect for us. It'll take 2 seconds, just like get over here. And then it's like trying it across other platforms. So of course, putting it on Instagram Reels, putting it on YouTube Shorts, see how it does. It's not always going to hit, but I feel like with the way how quickly things move now, you do really need to like stay on top of it, which is crazy when I think about as a model, like TV commercials we used to shoot like a year in advance, and that would just like never work for today's content strategy.
Yeah, and I think one of the things about TikTok is like, it's still so unknown, and some of the trends and the things that go viral are so random that it's kind of like you just have to try things. And that's also why I think you have to invest less in the actual production, because you just never know what's going to work and not work. And you just, it is I would say that I've been on so many calls over the past year and a half with agencies trying to tell me like what's going to work on TikTok. And it's definitely not that. So I mean, I see Emily laughing, but it's just, you just have to try random stuff.
Because this ends at 1. This is like a quickie here, like we're speed dating. But I know that the big trend we wanted to talk about before you left was also e-com versus retail, and how what you each think the future of in-person is versus virtual shopping.
Yeah, I mean, I think people have been craving in-person anything. So I think that's why when we went into lockdown, there was a huge, every retail shopper jumped to e-com, and you saw like a massive pickup in your e-com business. And then as people started getting vaccinated, we saw a huge pickup in all of our retailer store channels. And also at the same time, we saw a decline in the .com business on those same retailers. We're still seeing that stores are up and e-com is down. So if I just compare my retailer world, where I can compare both, we're definitely seeing that stores are still the preferred channel right now. I think that as we go into the next couple of months, and given everything that is ahead of us with the pandemic, and that we're going back to potentially a more lockdown world, I think that we're going to see the shift start happening again. And like I said, I think it will be around holiday, just before holiday, that we see our store business go back down and our e-com business go back up. That is how what we're predicting in our own business.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. I mean, I think I saw a stat the other day. It's like 60% of consumers are leaning towards e-com for this year's shopping, and I think the rest are kind of in between retail and e-com. But short term, I see you want to lean into e-com short term, I think, for the holiday season, and really prepare, pre Black Friday, Cyber Monday, during that, and then post as well, like just have a strategy around that. And I think there's ways to combine omni, right, and retail and e-com as well. And a prime example of that is I was at a Costco maybe a month ago, and you see a Casper mattress box there, which is obviously, you know, D2C born and bred. It's sitting at a club Costco with 4.8 star rating on Amazon, over 50,000 reviews, right? And so I think that's a really good example of what I was saying earlier. It's like build loyalty on all the channels, build the trust and authenticity, and go back to educating the customer, which is the highest up in the funnel you can really go to capture an audience, is to educate them about something. And then you can kind of intertwine all of that together. And, you know, our sister company, Team Direct, is one of the best in class brokerages for Walmart. And something that they've put forth is really, you know, having on the aisle, it says as seen on TikTok, like at a physical brick and mortar Walmart. And that stuff is really, really powerful from a conversion standpoint. So there's a lot of ways to intertwine social, online, and retail. I think you really need to sit down and think of a strategy on how to combine all those, because they're not siloed for sure.
I would agree. I mean, I think that's a really good point to not keep those siloed and focus on strategies, no matter what the channel is. I think when it comes to e-com versus retail, like Andrea was saying, obviously this massive shift to e-com, you know, you see businesses that weren't previously in e-com have spun it up, and businesses that were doing it before doing it even more than they were. Everybody gets double backs. Everyone wants to see people get in-person shopping. It totally makes sense. When all is said and done, I think it's going to net out that more people are invested in e-commerce. And mind you, it's going to differ based on sector too, right? Like obviously we're talking with respect to beauty and wellness right now, but depending on different verticals and what D2C brands are actually selling to their consumers, like some people might prefer to shop more in store versus e-com or vice versa, right? So we definitely have to consider that too. But as we approach the holiday season, I think people are so like used to this now, where they're just going online to shop for different products, that they're definitely going to revert back to that. And then when all is said and done, it's going to net out as a positive, in my opinion. But like Sagar was saying, it's very, very important to not just focus on the one strategy based on what your thoughts are, what your estimates are on like what's going to be the top channel, but focus on all channels and synchronize them, right? Make sure they all come together, and that no matter where the consumer is shopping for your brand or your product, that they have the same thought in their mind every time they see your name. And I think that's the most important thing.
Emily, do you have anything to share before we wrap things up?
I mean, we're still so baby, so we haven't even explored going into retail just yet. I mean, we're just focused right now on like our digital presence online. I will say that like, I think even though we're in this weird time, people are still craving in-person, kind of chiming off what everyone else was saying here. I know that just like we did a small in-person event shopping experience and people loved it, and you get content out of it, and people loved speaking in person. And you can see there is so much like value to seeing people in person, them interacting with each other, with the product. But it's still something that's like way down the line for us. And in terms of trends, I'm not sure. For myself, all I can speak for is like personally, and I'm like, do I miss the store? Of course, but I'm still doing everything online.
As we wrap things up, I just want like a word phrase from each of you of something that you're looking towards, that you want to kind of wisdom to impart to others here who are starting their own brands or building, that we haven't been able to share yet. Andrea?
I mean, I feel like a broken record, but I think for me, if someone told me a year and a half ago to just like be patient and understand that the world is changing so much so quickly that you can't figure it all out, and you know, you just have to be open and try things, that would have been really nice, because I took this job in May of 2020. And so I obviously took it at a very weird time, but I think that just be patient and try stuff and something will stick.
I could jump in. I think two things. It's just focus on the product. Like at the end of the day, none of this matters unless your product is good and you're innovating on it and people love it and care. And that sort of, I think, is tangential to like, is your product share worthy, right? Like, have you created a product that people want to say to their girlfriend or their fiance, whatever, like, I just use this, you should try it. Because that the way we'll tell that story is going to be, I think Rohan was saying it earlier, there's so many channels. There's going to be 10 other channels when we have this conference next year. So is the person that's actually trying it willing to tell someone else about it? And then that I think will solve for most problems. But I think, again, it takes intertwining strategy with that. But I would say focus on that fundamental of just product.
I think I would say, kind of similar to what Andrew was saying, is that it's a time to be quick on your feet and be ready to test and iterate. And that's the beautiful thing about, everything being online right now, whether that comes to content or your marketing. It's just a time to really test, try a bunch of different things. You don't know what's going to resonate and on which platform. And that content really is king. I mean, that comes from a content creator, but is really, really powerful, and finding ways to source that in creative, quick ways.
Rohan, before we jump off, because Julia's come here to close this up.
Oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, I'll be really quick here. Yeah, develop a message that resonates with your customers. Be super reactive in the way you get in front of your customers before they are your customers. Turn them into customers, and develop that loyalty. I think that's the most important thing that people can do, especially as it relates to e-commerce, but through all channels as well. So that would be my biggest point and takeaway. Over to you, Julia. Sorry.
Thank you so much for joining us, our amazing panelists. Check out their companies, everything they're up to. I'm Shira Lazar. Appreciate you all for having us today. Back to you, Julia.
Thank you, Shira.
Thank you
And
so
I think,
much.
check out Shira's meditation course. We can put the link in the chat, but I think after learning about all the TikToks that we're gonna need to be creating, that it'll be good to balance it out with a little mindfulness as well. Thank you all so much to our panelists. Thank you, Shira.